exact same format. And like when an employee leaves or rejoins, they even leave like a space. And I'm like, oh, well, if it always comes in the exact same format, you could probably just make a spreadsheet and then just like do like the little math operations, program it in. So I figured out that like, okay, if you make these like little formulas, it took me all of like 20 minutes. It's not very complicated. Copy paste this thing in, and then you can calculate the variances in about 2 seconds. You just copy paste them in. And so I'm thinking like, oh, cool. I just saved every supervisor like an hour per shift. And I talked to my manager about this. I got in trouble for it. And she was like, we can't use Excel because sometimes it makes mistakes, and then everything will get like messed up. Like, don't divert from the process. I was like, what? So there were a bunch of little issues like that. I remember on one issue, when I was working a graveyard shift, first of all, graveyard is where all happiness and norms go to die. Just everything is horrible on a graveyard. Casino. Yes, probably everything in real life ever. But my graveyard shifts were very challenging because one, they gave me employees that sometimes they could barely speak English. I had this Sudanese guy named Tut who didn't know what a cheeseburger was. I worked at a diner, okay? So I'm like teaching this guy to read while working the register, okay? And I have very few employees already. And it's just a fucking nightmare of a scenario. But I remember one day, Pam comes in, morning shift, that's my manager, and there's a big like soda machine, and there's a bunch of fruit flies underneath it. And she's like, Steven, why are there fruit flies underneath the soda machine? The grave shift, you guys should have cleaned it up. And I was like, listen, I tell swing shift that they need to leave this place a little bit cleaner for me because you're giving me one employee overnight. I don't have the time. We don't have the manpower to do this. And she's like, oh, well, why didn't you talk to me about this? And I said, I talked to all the swing shift supervisors about it. And she's like, if you're not getting the answer that you need to do your job effectively, then you need to email and CC the person above the person that you're having an issue with. And I was like, okay, that's good advice. Several months later, as we're running these promotions at the casino, I'm getting more and more swamped for my grave shift. I'm running into issues where eventually in the morning, a VP of like food and beverage walks by the restaurant. There's a bunch of unclean tables. And then I get an email from Pam saying, hey, just so you know, VP food and beverage is by, wasn't happy with the state of the restaurant. And by this point, I'm leaving a lot out, but like I'm getting so swamped and fucked at this job. It's like unreal. They're having me cut like my last cook at like 3 or 4 a.m. So I'm doing front of house and all the cooking and everything on my own. And they're expecting this place to look good by morning. She was like, impossible. So I email her, and then I CC the head of food and beverage above her, and I'm like, hey, if you want these jobs done, I need more employees, blah, blah, blah. And I didn't realize it at the time.
What is it fucking doing?
Yeah, so past that, there's a thing we call in corporate called papering somebody out the door. I wasn't like aware of it at the time that this was even happening to me because I figured I'm such a good employee, so I'm getting fired. That over time, I start getting written up for every single little thing, and I don't think much about it because whatever. Like I come into work, like I had only missed 1 day of work in like 3 years. But all of a sudden, I start getting written up if I'm in like 2 minutes late, like big write-ups too. And I'm like, okay. And then one day, there's a complicated scenario with a girl that might get fired or not. I end up getting fired because I tell a girl that she's going to get fired. She comes in like, I'm the authority to fire employees. It's like a really convoluted, stupid thing. Yeah, and that just, it hit me like a ton of bricks.
I still don't get that. What was the reason? Because you went above somebody else?
Because I
think just destroy all this shit.
Because I emailed the guy above her and then she didn't like that at all. Yeah, and I think I didn't understand like corporate politics. I was an idiot. I didn't play it correctly. That whole era of my life was really bad because me and my girlfriend at the time we bought a house when like a year earlier, and now I didn't have money to pay for the house.
Destroy everything else.
Yeah, I was making a lot of money, but after getting fired from the casino,
and then get the
started to fall behind on the mortgage, fall behind on other bills. I was kind of like stuck in like a hopeless because I'm not going back to school. I'm stuck in a really shitty job, not making enough money for the lifestyle that I had because my pay went from at the casino I'm getting $22.15 an hour for overtime, and now for carpet cleaning I'm working like 13-day stretches because I get like every other Sunday off, and my take-home pay is like $2,000 a month. So I'm getting like completely fucking obliterated.
Were you like in the red then every single month?
It started to hit that point, yeah.
And what did your girlfriend think of the time where you got fired from your job and you're just kind of hanging out and playing StarCraft 2 while you have bills and mortgages and stuff like that?
Well, she was working at the time, so she didn't know as much. But when she was, it's not like I was not working and playing StarCraft. Like I would only play in the times between jobs because the issue was for carpet cleaning. Like if I'm really lucky, you might get like an 8-hour job, and an 8-hour job you're getting paid $16 an hour. So however much that ends up being. 80 and 40, whatever. I'm working that, and then I go home. Yeah, so, yeah. I work that job, go home, and then I've got like a whole evening to play games, right? If I'm lucky, I've got like a good 8-hour job. I make like a lot of money. I do that. But if I've got like a lot of jobs scattered throughout the day, then I might be like working like on call basically for like 12 to 16 hours, but I'm only making like $30 or $40, depending on the shit. So like playing StarCraft in between was the only thing I could do, or just sit around at the office doing nothing. Yeah.
And I'm assuming this was the last job that you had, the carpet cleaning, before you got into streaming full time.
So
And that was like, did it take off immediately?
It's
How
one,
was
like,
the
right
progression
here.
of your streaming career?
I think it probably took about 6 months before people were like, oh, like you can solicit like PayPal donations and stuff. And I started to do that
go
after,
up here.
after like 6 or 7 months. I think it was in December or November of 2010 is where I got like my first payout from. I originally streamed on a live stream, then Ustream, then a website called Justin TV, and I think they started a partner program for some of the streamers, and I was one of the first people in it, if not the first person, I'm not sure. But I got a paycheck for like $203 or something for like ad revenue
For a month?
Yeah, but when I got that $203, I looked back and I just did a quick calculation on like how many hours do I stream, and then how many hours do I do carpet cleaning, and it's like if I streamed, the dollar per hour I made streaming was about the same as my dollar per hour carpet cleaning, and I was like, fuck carpet cleaning, I was gonna stay home and play video games and stream because I'll make about the same money, so fuck it. And then from there everything started to increase quite a bit. Yeah.
And what changes were you making to grow on Justin TV at the time? Were there certain like metas and different things that you could do? Like,
There was the streaming didn't really exist yet. The reason why I was able to start early on was because there was a really high technological hurdle. Because the software was incredibly complicated, and streaming was very new, so there weren't even very many people doing it. There were no forums to help with anything, but I was willing to dump a lot of time into figuring out how to make all the stuff work, but like the hardware at the time was not the greatest. I think I was using an E6750 like duo core chip. The software was horrible. We used Flash CD Live Encoder, Camtasia Studio, and a bunch of other things, virtual audio cables to get shit to work. And then the data was insane. I think you were limited to like 300 to 500 kilobits per second for like a stream. So it was very, 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 very hard to get everything working.
how many concurrent viewers would you have at the time?
I probably started with like 5, 6, 7, and then I grew to like 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and yeah.
And when you were at 30, 40, 50 is when it actually made sense to be doing that full time.
Yeah, but because I was just making so little money carpet cleaning, yeah.
And were you just playing video games at the time, or were you talking about maybe different philosophies and ideas that you have, or was it purely just like gameplay?
It was just video games. Like, people watch me because I was really good at trash talk. My background before streaming was a lot of trash talk and a lot of video game playing. Like, the whole reason I think why I even got turned on to streaming is because I had a friend recommend it to me. He's like, oh, some people do this. And me and a couple other friends would set up like Tekken or Mario Kart outside the one of the classrooms at high school, and we would be like playing and screaming at each other and talking shit or whatever. And he was like, that was like a funny experience. Like, having other people watch that would probably be funny too. So that's basically what got me into it.
Oh, wow.
And then when did it start taking off to the point where it actually started changing your own personal philosophies and ideas on policy to turn you
Ooh, I should go
liberal?
here.
Probably like 3, 4, 5 years.
3, 4, 5 years.
I think it was once my son started to grow and I saw how affected his life was by my finances. That's when I think I started to change my view on things a lot. So like the first year I did streaming full time, I think I managed to make $100,000.
Oh, shit.
First year you did full time, you made $100,000.
Yeah, but I didn't know anything about like taxes or whatever, so I wasn't paying any taxes. So my second year I had to deal with that, which was kind of brutal. But I also, the situation I had with my girlfriend at the time, our relationship was very, 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 very bad. So like she would live in my house.
Very, very
she got
bad.
pregnant as we were breaking up. It was well, I say she got pregnant. I got her pregnant. We got pregnant. And then it's not like she did it on her own. Yeah,
Just did it.
yeah, she did.
Showed up one day pregnant.
Yeah. So she was living at the house. I was like bouncing between all these other apartments because we couldn't live together without fighting physically with each other. So I'm like bouncing around all these apartments with these
Sacred
weird people
ring.
I'm trying to live with, but I'm also trying to stream at the same time.
What is this?
So, and then we moved
Life.
to Poland for 3 months.
Life
to do
regeneration
some
while
gaming
not
house or
damaged
whatever.
recently.
But after I got home, I'd say probably like in 2014, my life started to get a little bit more stable. I started to make more solid, reliable money without having to move
Get
around so much. She got like a place to stay.
Okay.
And then when I started to make financial decisions based on my kid, right? So like which school district I wanted to be in, what opportunities I wanted to have. Then I started to see things a lot differently in terms of like how people's lives are affected by the finances of their parents. That's probably what changed the most.
And what did you and your
Where
girlfriend
the fuck am
at the
I?
time argue with, or what
Okay,
was
I'm
the
right
reason why you guys
here.
were arguing? Was it like fundamental differences, or was it just like petty random things
right
where maybe you're,
Here?
I don't know, guys just weren't compatible. There was no chemistry.
But depending on how deep you want to go into relationship dynamics.
I would love to.
Sure.
We love talking
We'd
about it.
love
There's-
to
I think
go
there's, like,
into
two
your
primary,
relationship.
methods of settling disputes that people have. One is a group of people that are very conflict avoidant. One is a group of people that are very like aggressive pursuer to resolve conflict. I'm very much like an avoidant kind of person, or like if we're like in a triggered like things are bad, I just need like 12 hours to cool off. And don't talk to me and let me just like go somewhere. And for whatever reason, every single person I've dated has been very much like a pursuer kind of person. Like, we've got conflict, we need to resolve this right fucking now. So usually with her, the issue would be, we would fight over it would just be really dumb shit, and then I'd want to be left alone, and then she'd want to resolve it now, and then that would escalate and escalate and escalate until I would try to like leave the house, or we would end up like fighting with each other over something, basically. Yeah.
How do you solve that? Like, how do you make that dynamic work?
Well, now that I'm older, the dynamic probably would have involved better communication from me and her about our issues. Setting more realistic boundaries around resolving conflict.
Maybe if you explain that concept to her, it also would have been good.
No, that doesn't help.
You don't think, like, you say, I'm a conflict avoidant person, like, I just need 12 hours and I'll be
It doesn't matter.
That won't
That
work?
it's like a conflict. It's like a
Don't
pursuer
fucking
person explaining to
matter.
me, well, I need to resolve this right now. Like, so for instance, the current relationship I'm with my wife, she's very much like, if she's got conflict with me, she needs to resolve it right now, and I'm very much like an avoidant person. So one of us is like always losing when it comes to resolving conflict, right? Like, if we get into a fight over something, more often than not, it's because I've done something stupid. So and she'll want to resolve the issue. And
Can you bring up an actual example, or is that too intrusive?
Too intrusive.
No, I don't want to bring up an example. It's usually just like it'll usually just be
I don't
like
blame
me.
you, I
No,
don't
it's
blame
fine.
you.
It'll usually be
Yeah,
like me hiding or lying about something.
Yeah,
Just something really stupid that I shouldn't be doing. But like what'll happen is or not always. Also, she fucks up too. Okay, don't. No, but like we'll have like an issue with something, and if we go to resolve the conflict, but one of two things could happen. Either one, it has to be resolved right now. So she's going to like lean into me and she'll be like, I need to resolve this, we need to talk this, blah, blah, blah. And then that'll escalate to me being like, okay, blah, 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 until I get angry and then I'm like, fuck you, you're stupid, get out of here, go back to Sweden, blah, 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 blah. And then we'll fight like that, and it's just not good. And eventually maybe we'll resolve it and it's whatever. So that would be like, if she pushes too hard. If I get my way, then what'll happen is we'll have a conflict, and then I'll get 12 hours to cool off. And at the end of the 12 hours, I'll be like, oh, yeah, I was probably dumb, it's fine. But at the end of the 12 hours for her, she's thinking like the whole time like he's gonna break up with me, like it's over, like he hates me, like it's over, blah 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 blah. So there's like it's very hard to strike a balance there, because it's either I get super triggered when we fight, or she's like left like feeling like super panicky and triggered for like 12 hours while I'm like chilling out. So it's really really hard for different people. Like obviously all you can do is communicate.
Not fucking jump.
We've got like little strategies that we try to employ, like. Even if you hate somebody at the moment, like tell them you love them, so that we're like still chill on things, like things like that to let us know where we're okay. But it's a lot of work to resolve that. But I don't think at like 20, I don't know if I would have been able to, or if my partner at the time would have been able to, because we're young and stupid. So,
And would you consider yourself a pretty emotional person?
like compared to other people, probably not as much. But I mean, like, yeah, we're all emotional to some extent. Yeah.
Because it seems like if you're getting into an argument with someone, like it seems to me like you have a very rational, logical brain. That you would be able to see that, hey, maybe if I say F you, this type of stuff, it's not going to lead towards the direction I want this conversation going.
We're like, the problem is that like ration and logic are like tools that can be emotionally aimed at like anything that you want. So like if I'm fighting with somebody, like I can be like very logical and rational, but it might be like in a really emotionally destructive way, because I'm like emotionally dysregulated, right? Like if I get into a fight with a partner, like I might list like, well, here's like 7 good reasons why this relationship should end, and you should get the fuck out of my face right now. And everyone will be like logically consistent and like logical, but like on an emotional level, like I'm being a fucking moron. And what I should be saying is like, let's like think of like a couple ways we can like fix this problem. So a lot of people have this like dichotomy of like, you can either be logical or you can be emotional, but like I view things as kind of like a building block. Like foundationally, you've got like a very foundational like emotional vibe, feeling, whatever's going on down here, and then your logic and reason comes unfortunately after that. If you're emotionally this took me a long time. This took me like 30 years of my life to figure out, because like I consider myself like a logic lord, so it took me a long time to figure this out. But you are incredibly a slave to your emotional state, and if you don't realize that, then you're fucking yourself up in so many different ways. But yeah,
I read somewhere that when you get in an argument, parts of your brain actually shut down that make it almost impossible for you to hear the other side or reason logically.
there might be. Yeah, I mean, depending
on, it
on
takes time afterwards for your brain to like start functioning properly again after something like that.
Yeah, probably, yeah. Depending, I mean, I know this like from arguing with people, depending on how you attack an argument, you can turn a person's ability to hear you completely off right away. Or you can do it in ways where you can get them to be really receptive to what you have to say. It just depends on how you approach it. Yeah. But it's a very
Have
challenging.
you learned what the strategies are and how to implement them, or no?
Yeah, for sure. It just depends on the person.
Oh,
and
fuck.
depends on, yeah, there's a lot of different things.
Are there any strategies that you could share?
It's usually pretty specific to like a particular debate, but like attacking, like there's so many things. Yeah, there are so many different things. Jeez. So like, let's say that we're arguing about like
So many.
about like
Just name one.
housing, right? And we want to argue about rent control versus like public housing versus like zoning your housing or whatever. I'm really trying to pull somebody over to my side. There's a lot of things I need to keep in mind. One, reminding the other person that we have like a common goal, like, hey, we want to like make it as hard as possible, right? Like, let's not lose sight of that. Whoever's right or wrong in the conversation, we have a shared goal at least. That would be one thing. A second thing is like, don't ever attack the person, attack the problem. That's like relationship advice too, right? So never like, you're so stupid. Why do you think this? Blah, blah, blah. But more like showing empathy. Like, I understand why you might think this might be a good idea, but, you know, have you considered this? Having grace when you're correct about things is very important. Never like, look at this study. It shows how completely fucking wrong you are. Like, what are you thinking? But more like,
That is
That-
100%
sure, yeah.
Graham. Yeah,
Yeah.
you bring one thing up to Graham. He's like, well, I actually found 12 sources that
yeah.
I immediately
Phrasing-
go to
phrasing
my phone
things
and
that-
find sources.
Yeah, phrasing things that gives the other person like agency or empowers them is really good. Like, I understand why you think that, but you should check out like this study. Maybe it'll change your mind on something. Like, this is something that I just found recently, right? You're kind of like humbling yourself and giving them the opportunity to be like, oh, okay, yeah, maybe I would, right? So it almost feels like it's coming from them instead of like coming from you. Yeah, fuck. There's like it super depends on the topic, but there's so many different like little strategies like this that you can employ. Providing people with a soft landing pad kind of goes with grace. If you change your mind on something, I'm not gonna like hold it over you or judge you for it. Like, it'll be like, oh, cool. Like, okay, yeah, you're right about this particular thing. And it's like, yeah, like I saw your point of view, I understand, but you know, maybe I think this is a
Where
little bit
the
better.
fuck am
Rather than
I?
like, okay, you're right. It's like, yeah, of course I'm right. You fucking moron. Like, you blah blah blah. Yeah, there's. Really with relationships and debate, and probably with like business partners and employees and everything too, there's just like a lot of strategies like that to be like, you have to be very empathetic, very soft, very graceful, very humble, and you give the other person as much kind of like space to like grow and think and develop as possible without being too aggressive. Because the problem is there's a lot of like psychological trips in the brain. As soon as somebody perceives that they're being attacked, they're no longer having a conversation. Now they're defending themselves, right? Because if I come at you and I'm like, you have this position on like abortion or something, and it's so wrong and so fucking stupid, in your mind, you're not thinking like, okay, he disagrees with my position, let's hash it out. In your mind, you're like, he thinks I'm a fucking idiot. Well, I can't lose the debate on this topic, because if I am, I'm conceding that I am a fucking idiot. So now you're not fighting for the idea, you're fighting for your life at this point, okay? You can't be stupid, you're not dumb, you don't see yourself that way. So the debate becomes less about that particular position and more about you trying to salvage your integrity or maintain,
and trying to get them to figure it out for themselves rather than injecting your own ideology into that space that you're hopefully creating by showing grace.
Ideally, yeah. Yeah, so be careful, because in some of my debates you can see me do this really well, and in other debates I'm not doing this well at all. It just depends on the interlocutor. But yeah, but these are things I try to keep in mind when having these conversations.
How do you learn how to do all this? Did you take a debate class? Like, how did you get so good?
I mean, a lot of it you just learn. A lot of it is, no, you don't just learn it. A lot of it is like very deliberate. Like, if I have a conversation with somebody and I'll go back after and I'm trying to think of like, I'll try to think of like, how can it come off better in this conversation? Like I was talking with a friend earlier. I just had a really challenging abortion debate like 2 days ago. And in that debate, both of my opponents were, I don't want to say bad faith, but they're like cutting me off at every single answer I'm giving. And I realized like 30 minutes into the debate that like, okay, we've moved past logic. Like, I need to figure out on a meta level, like, how am I going to manage this conversation? Because right now
Bound
it's a shit
high.
show. And from that point, there's just a ton of different strategies that you can employ.
trying to
I'll
attack
try
me?
one, and then I'll think back. So like, I think in that one, I started to get like a little
Oh my
bit snarky.
God.
I started to be like a little bit like
Where these
playful,
fucking guys
assholeish
come
or
from?
whatever. But I might look back and I might say like, okay, well, maybe if I would have like taken the high road and I've been super calm the whole time and chill, maybe I would have come off better. But in other debates, there are times where I've like been very chill, very cordial, even when the other person's being aggressive. And I've gone back and I've reviewed that, and I'm like, you know, when I look at how I performed in that debate, when I was like very high roady, I very much was a cordial person. I actually look really weak here, because the other person's laying into me and laying out their whole philosophy. I'm barely getting in any words, and I'm not like defending myself at all. So I just end up looking weak. In other debates, there have been times where I'm very aggressive, and then I come back and I'm like, you know, if I was chilled here and given this guy more time to make mistakes and look stupid, I would have come off way better to the audience. So there's a big
Four
balancing game.
more.
It's a very complicated
So you
dance.
study, basically.
Yeah. It's deliberate. That's what I'm saying. It's deliberate. It doesn't just like happen
Four
naturally.
more.
It's like reviewing debates, reviewing conversations, and then varying like your approach to see like how do I think an audience perceives me, how do I perceive me, and then reading a lot of feedback, YouTube comments, subreddit posts, 4chan posts, other YouTube posts, streamer chats, like things on Twitter, to see like how people feel about a particular conversation.
Why is it so important to you?
Um,
Why place this much time on debates and getting your thoughts across?
Because I'm really good at it. So if anybody's gonna do it, it's got to be me.
Sure.
No, I mean I super enjoy it. It's really fun for me. It's like it's like when you go to debate somebody, there's like 7 different huge skills, like conversational, like intellectual, like research and prep, your demeanor. There's like so many different things that go into it. It's complicated back and forth. I do think I'm pretty good at it. I think people recognize that. I do feel strongly about the ideas that I have, and I'd like to convince more people to think in them. I make a lot of money doing it, so it's like a fun career path, and it enables and unlocks me to do so many like really fun things in my life. Like if I wasn't doing streaming, I would still be on Reddit or Twitter, like arguing with people and like shit talking, and like 'cause that's just the kind of person I am. It was like really fun for me. Yeah.
And just to finish up this chronological story of your entire life that brought you up to this table today, you were streaming. You became very successful. Justin TV turned into Twitch TV. You were doing Twitch for a while. Can you talk about your income over time?
My income over time was, I think I made like a decent amount of money. I think in my like my first like 5 to 10 years, I was probably making like low 6 figures, 100 to 200K a year maybe.
So very stable.
Yeah, very
How
stable.
were you not growing if you were continually going on Twitch? Was your community just like subbing in and out?
There's some things that like came out and then dropped off. Like in the very, very, very beginning days of Justin TV, like the ad revenue was insane. I think off of like 3,000 or 4,000 viewers, I could like make $8,000 a month in ad revenue, which at the time was like really big and really good. And then like that completely like fell off the map. Then subscribers were introduced to Twitch eventually. I made my own website to manage my own subscribers, so I started to make more money there. Yeah, it probably grew a bit over time. I don't know 100%. It probably went from like 100K to like 300 or 400K. It probably was growing steadily, but I didn't have like any explosive growth. My growth has always been like pretty stable the whole time. And then my biggest, most recent explosive growth in income has come from my YouTube channel, which was my greatest mistake of not starting that. Like I had a YouTube channel like 10 or 11 years ago that I think got to like 70 or 80,000 subs, which back then was like pretty good. And I abandoned that for like 8 or 9 years, and then just like I want to say like 4 years ago maybe I started taking my YouTube more seriously again. I should have been doing that the whole time, but that's been like my most recent like big income bump.
Are you comfortable to talk about numbers that you're currently doing right now, or is that off the table?
Yeah, I guess if you want to, sure.
Sure. Yeah. So
I'd be
YouTube.
curious. Yeah.
Yeah. So what percentages or numbers is like YouTube versus Twitch versus non-Twitch versus
What's Twitch? Yeah.
versus like the Kick deal versus
2
Rumble and all that
more.
stuff?
So my website is where I have my own subs and people can donate through there. I think on that I make about 250,000 a year. I think is what I made last year. I think around
And is
200.
that like an email thing or
No,
how are you?
it's just you go to destiny.gg and then you can subscribe there. You can donate there. It runs as its own completely side like chat and ecosystem or whatever.
Oh, so you stream on there as well?
No, it's just an embed from like YouTube or Twitch.
Oh, okay.
Well, not Twitch, but yeah. YouTube ad revenue is really good. I probably make around like anywhere from 40 to 60,000 a month off of that, and then I've got like 2 other channels that make around like 20 to 30,000 a month. I pay like 45% of all that ad revenue goes to my my YouTube editor, who's definitely overpaid. August. No, I'm just kidding.
45% of
That's
that.
a lot.
Yeah, I do.
Wait,
Yeah.
all of your channels?
Yeah, he gets a lot of money.
No.
Yeah.
When did you agree to that, dude?
A long time ago.
Before it was making
Um,
much?
I mean, it's like 100K a month.
basically
between
the
everything.
it's yeah, he does really well, but the basically the way that I saw it when I initially did it was
No ideas, Jack. Hey, man.
when I initially did it, my idea was basically that I want him to be as invested in the channel growth as I am, and I don't want to do anything. I don't manage anything with my YouTube. He does every thumbnail,
Title,
every video,
thumbnail, yeah,
nothing. I
description,
never
everything.
look at it ever. I get a check every basically month
And it's
from
completely
people.
satisfactory. on that.
100%, yeah. If I went back in time, I probably would have started at a lower rate, probably. But like, I'm okay with him making a lot of money. He's made me a ton of money. He's made me like really successful. Like, I'm cool that he can share in that success. That's really awesome.
Does he
I
have a
think.
bunch of editors now?
He might be hiring out other people. It's his job. It's his money. Whatever he can do with it. So yeah.
Interesting. Okay, and then you of course
Very
have the
interesting.
Rumble and the Kick deal.
Does your editor get a cut of those deals as well, or just
Fuck
the
no.
videos?
He gets paid
Yeah.
enough. Okay. Don't give him any ideas.
Listen, I
Cut
was-
that part out.
That's funny. Okay, cool. So your philosophy developed over time when you had your kids, and then obviously when you started making more money, you saw how much of an impact that makes on a child's life. Interesting.
So my guess is then you think you should probably
Interesting.
pay more in tax. Or what do you believe in?
This is my view
Yeah.
on taxation.
Yeah.
Okay. Fuck it. No, I'm just
Okay,
kidding. I did leave
next
California for a
one is-
reason. No. Well, yeah. But there are certain social programs that we should advocate for in the United
North.
States, and we should have those social programs, and then we should tax people
Close to the
accordingly. That's my
top.
view of it. So some people are like very moral and like we should pay more taxes and we should pay less taxes. Like I'm not here to punish anybody with taxes. I don't care about that. I just whatever social programs we have, we should fund. I'm okay paying taxes. I'm okay with a progressive tax system. Like I definitely pay all my taxes. But yeah, I'm never one like when somebody's like, should we pay more or less? I'm like, we should have the social programs we need, and then we should fund them.
Are you
So right
so
now, like the rate of
fucking
taxation for public is
slow?
probably a little bit low, but
You're a
my biggest
horse.
complaint living in California was the state taxes here are really high. I think the highest in every other place except for like New York.
Okay.
And I
that's
don't know
that
where that
one.
money goes.
Nobody does. It goes to a rail system that was never built.
Oh, the $1 billion.
Altars of Lilith. Okay,
Oh,
I
and the
got
lamps.
one
Did you
more
guys see the
area
lamps?
over
What was that? Nobody
here.
else has seen the lamps. I
No,
feel
what is
crazy.
that?
It was like San Francisco or San Jose or LA or somebody. There's like $10,000 lamp installations on the street, and
I've
no
seen
one
so
knows
many
what they
different,
do.
like, YouTube videos of like
Let's
this
go
$2
over
million
here.
public bathroom was
Oh,
built
I've
in
seen
New
that
York.
one.
And it's like
Yeah.
a tiny little like normal public
Yeah.
bathroom.
Yeah, someone did an investigation of how this thing cost $2 million when the market value of that should have been about 80,000. And they went in and they investigated and they interviewed people who were involved in it. Everyone was silent. And it seems as though a lot of
Got
money
the
went
right
to
one,
permits,
silent.
developers, contracts, random things, and overpaying. So if someone gets a budget of $1 million, they'll spend all $1 million.
Don't need
They
this
won't. This
anymore.
concrete is 10 times more because you know,
What's
what the
this
budget is.
one?
So it seems like a lot of money wasted on that.
It's very strange because like
Kish
America's like the freest,
time.
most capitalist country and blah 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 on earth, but we have so much like bureaucratic red
There's a
tape
lot of waste.
on like construction and everything. It's like
We have to
insane.
spend all of your budget if you want to get it back. 'Cause
What
if you
really
spend a certain-
upset me was that downtown Los Angeles, they wanted to build a homeless shelter there, and I don't know the
Isn't
specifics.
LA like kind of already homeless shelter?
Yeah, well,
Sorry.
so they
I'm
wanted
sorry.
to build a new
Go to
one
that one
downtown Los
first.
Angeles,
Uh-huh.
and so someone investigated this that they had signed a lease and they'd been paying for like 6 years now, $50,000 a month for a warehouse. They have not even started construction on it yet. They've
Not
built
even
it, and
started.
Apparently, it had a foundation issue, and they couldn't do anything with it.
Yeah,
So-
the issue
but
with
they
it's-
kept paying it for years. And so what it came down to was that the person who signed this did a deal with their friend, and they had a business connection
Did a deal
to
with the
spend all the money on a
devil.
lease so that their colleague could get all the money for that
Okay.
without providing anything in return.
Oh, yeah.
It's still going.
Well,
So
usually for a lot of stuff like that, what'll happen is like you rent something, you discover there's a problem, then you have to contact an inspector, then you have to wait for the inspector
Where's
to come
the-
out,
oh,
and he gives the
okay.
okay. Then like the city comes out, and then they okay it, and then step one of whatever thing happens, and then another inspector comes out, and it's like it's just such a nightmare. But yeah, that's my big problem with LA is that like the thing that really fucked my head up was anytime I travel to Europe, there are so many social services and everything available that seem to run pretty well. Like they're not perfect; they got their problems.
Okay,
But like public
next
transit in
one.
all of Europe is fucking awesome. And then I come back to America and I'm paying
Yeah.
like now I live in Florida. My tax situation is cool. But when I live in California, I've got huge cost of living. I've got huge taxes and a massive state tax. Like I want to say my effective tax rate, I want to say like 2 or 3 years ago, my effective tax rate was like 42% or something. And I'm like
I've seen routinely more than 50%.
yeah, I'm like paying like
Yeah.
European levels of taxes here. Like this is fucking wild. Like why how am I
European
paying? Like I'm
levels.
supposed to be making fun of people in Europe for paying this level of taxation. Yeah, so yeah, that's my issue. I'll gladly pay a lot of taxes. I just want to like get something for it, I guess. Like if there's like a functional public transit in LA, maybe
Oh,
I'd feel
oh,
different.
oh, 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 oh,
crazy
oh,
with
Treasure Goblin.
Capital gains tax rate is something about 53%.
Really?
Chop his
Because
ass.
you're taxed as ordinary income.
Yeah.
And then you have to pay state tax on top of that.
Uh-huh.
And if you make over $1 million
Chop
a year,
your
it's
ass.
2.8 net investment tax that gets paid on top of that.
Oh, so when you say short-term capital gains, you're just talking about the net added to the state
Correct.
on the federal.
At,
yeah,
at
I
the
gotcha,
top
gotcha.
income bracket.
I understand. Okay.
So it's hefty.
Can we talk about that Lex Friedman interview you did?
Sure.
How was that? Like, did he just reach out via DM or something? Like that? 'Cause I'm a huge Lex Friedman fan. And that, like I said before we started
You should have
rolling,
worn your suit today.
I should have worn my
Yeah.
suit. Yeah, that was the first time I was actually exposed to you, and it was also, I think it might have been back to back or very close to when he posted one with Ben Shapiro, which I also really enjoyed. I watched both yours and Ben's, and I thought they were both really incredible, great perspectives. Can you talk about,
Very
like, just DM it,
Karaba.
I had some crazy stuff going on my stream for a while, and I think he started to show up in my stream chat after finding
he
me
was
through.
watching you.
Yeah,
Wow.
after finding me through another streamer. Yeah, that was weird because we'll be like
That's cool.
talking on chat about like, is it moral to have like incestuous relations with twin brothers? And then like Lex Friedman will like donate like $10, be like, I don't know what I walked into, and I'm like, just leave.
So you know it was Lex then.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So he watches a lot of streams sometimes, I guess. Like he spends time doing things. Yeah.
Interesting. So then he was a fan of you. He started.
Originally he was a fan of another streamer that was like a mutual friend of ours, kind of, and then he found me through that streamer, and then he started watching me, and then he invited me out eventually. Yeah.
And how was that? Was it a surreal experience?
Yeah, it was cool. He seems like a really, I'll almost say naive is like maybe a negative way, but for the most part, he's like a really genuinely friendly, fun guy who just like wants the best for everybody, you know? So like naive in the best way, I guess. Yeah.
Interesting. So I remember there was one thing that really stuck out to me from this interview is you quoted your mom, and she said something like, "Stevie, don't be so open
Minded that your brain falls out, yeah.
Where the
And
fuck?
then Lex immediately like slammed the band
there
hammer
it
down. He was
is.
like, I could not disagree with that anymore. Could you explain what exactly that means and why you believe it?
So, oh god, there's like a Socrates quote. I'm living in quotes right now, where it's like, it takes
Okay,
it takes
so
the mind
there's
of an intelligent man to entertain an idea without accepting
three.
something. So something that I work really hard on in life is I like to be able to look at a lot of different perspectives without losing myself. And it seems like people typically go one of two ways. Either you're very open to everything, but then basically you repeat whatever the last thing was told to you. So like I would have a critique with Joe
Okay,
Rogan that I
there's
feel like he kind of
one
does this, where
right
anybody that comes on is
here.
kind of like, oh, okay, I see this is kind of cool, and it doesn't really challenge as much. Or you have people that are dogmatic and can't hear any other idea. Like everything else is stupid, wrong, dumb, and I'm not going to like even entertain the idea. Something I hope I can
Run,
do,
run,
that I
run,
like to
run.
be able to do, is I have
Get
an open enough
the fuck out of
mind
my
that
way.
I'll entertain other people's ideas. I'll try to understand other people's perspectives. But I very firmly have like my own beliefs and thoughts that I believe in, and I'm not going to change my mind just because like this thing sounds interesting, I guess. So don't ever have your mind so open that your brain falls out. It just means don't let the last person that talked your ear off like convince you of like every single new thing that they decide to say, basically.
What do you think about core
Yeah.
principles and then allowing your core principles to be changed? Do you think that that's a good idea, or do you think that those core principles that you identify with are some of the most, I would say, distinctive features of who you are?
Yeah, core principles are distinctive and really important. The only thing that should change core features is if your life is constantly on like a bad trajectory, or there's some incongruence with where you want to be and where you are, and that seems to be getting messed up over and over again, then it might be time to go back and reconsider some core principles. But yeah, that's going to be super individualized to the person and the event. But yeah. But I would say anytime you're having a lot of issues over and over and over and over and over again, and nothing seems to be working or changing, then it might be time to like go back to the drawing board and refigure like, okay, like something is wrong fundamentally. Like I need to figure out like what's going on. Yeah.
Mhm.
And can we talk about your relationship?
Sure.
Are you cool with that? So, Graham, I don't know if you know this, but he's in a open relationship, right, with your wife. So you guys are able to see other people. How did you come to that conclusion?
Okay. My last relationship, I cheated.
You cheated?
I think, yeah. Not really that surprising. I'm sorry.
Why?
Because I'm horny and fucking dumb, and it's whatever. What I realized after that relationship was like, I am just never gonna date again because I'm too Coomer brained, and I can't. The idea of like being with one person for the rest of my, I just can't. I can't ever do it. It's never gonna work. It's never gonna happen. And rather than subject somebody else to the horrors of dating me and being cheated on by me, I'm just gonna do my own thing on my own. Fuck it. So for a while, I did that, and eventually Melina, my wife, she reached out to me via Instagram, and we kind of started flirting a little bit, and I was going through some weird stuff in California, and then I had like a job opportunity pop up with like a sponsor camera system, and I was like, oh, she's in New Zealand, I've got a few friends in New Zealand, I'm gonna go to New Zealand, hang out with her for a bit, talk to other people. And when I went down to New Zealand, she has a lifestyle where she's like polyamorous. And then she describes this to me, and I never even considered it before. And I'm like, okay, this sounds kind of cool. And then eventually we start talking more, we start dating. And from the outset, basically, we've had that style of relationship because I guess she was involved in it before. And then once I found out about it, this is like a dream for me because ideally it means that I can like work on my stuff, do my shit, and my partner doesn't see me as like their sole source of like entertainment or whatever they need because they have the opportunity to go do other things. And then if I want to, I can go do other things. It should be okay.
But why get married? You're married to her?
Yeah.
Why get married in that sort of situation?
Because she's Swedish. So
Taxes?
no, well, 'cause
Oh,
I
well,
want to
yes,
live with her.
bring her.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Because without getting married, she can only see me like 3 months out of the year. So
Got it. Okay. How does it? I don't get how it works. I don't
well,
get how.
how fundamental do you want the
I want it from the
conversation to be?
beginning. How does it? Could you explain that? No. I don't get how either side could not get jealous, possessive, wanting that person all to themselves. It seems so foreign to me that she could be off doing
So
something,
boring.
and I'm here. My mind's
Great.
just not process it, as would like I.
The stream is lagging.
You know,
Sure.
to me, I couldn't.
I think there's probably some. I think there's some like natural level of jealousy that exists for
Natural?
literally every single type of interaction.
All right. Where
Like
the
even in
fuck
monogamous
am
relationships,
I
some people might get
going
jealous if their significant other is like
now?
has a close friend of the opposite sex, or like is saying good things about somebody else like
Here?
that you view yourself as like competition to. That
Down
if they do things
here.
with friends that you wanted to be included, like there's a lot of like places in life where jealousy and stuff can pop up.
Right
Obviously, your partner being
there.
married is probably one of the more prone to jealous environments that can happen. I guess the way that I view it is there are certain things in life that I really want to be able to do, and being able to like hook up with other people is like really fun for me. But I also feel like very secure in who I am and what I offer and what I can offer to other people. And I don't think that my partner hooking up with another person is gonna make them not like me because I'm an awesome person. So if they want to go and
He's a
stuff like that, as long as I have the opportunity to as well, and like we know we both love each other, for me it's just not that big of a deal.
Does it ever concern you that you could potentially not be that way for the rest of your life, and you've set this as the foundation of your relationship with her?
This is gonna sound very brutal,
Easy.
but
Oh, fuck.
this is gonna be the most
Go away.
Chicago School of Economics answer I ever give.
Go
If
away,
at any point in
motherfuckers.
time I'm not like a good enough partner for my person, the last thing I would want is some monogamous bound like keeping them like locked to me.
Locked
That's how I view it
in.
basically. So if my partner ends up running into somebody
All
and
right.
they like treat her better, they make her happier, she has more fun with them and all that, and she's like, listen, like I think I'm really this person. I mean, fuck, you probably should.
You would
I
be
mean,
very matter of fact about it.
yeah, I mean, like I might be. I mean, like at that point, core
This
principle. At that point,
way.
I would have to evaluate. Like, okay,
Up
here's my wife. I love her a
here.
lot. She's met another person who provides all these things that I don't provide. So then at that point, I have to
Easy.
decide,
Wait.
do I want to change myself enough to
Oh,
provide
let's
those
go down
things,
here first.
or do I like what I provide and what I can get, and then I go find somebody that's more like synergistic with that,
Let me
basically.
ask you this: would you prefer if she be monogamous? Like all things considered, just the situation's exactly the same. You could still do
Damn.
whatever you want.
Somebody
but
kill
she's
him already?
monogamous.
Oh, fuck. I
Free.
missed it. Arrgh.
So,
All right.
okay, I'm breaking with a lot of
Back
arms
to
here, I'm sorry.
the thing.
Ever since I was in high school, I have a very
Ever
aggressive
since I was a
personality.
young lad.
I really like strong characters. I really like strong character in women. Like my first wife, like was very much like we would argue and fight all the time for fun, but like we very much like
For
I need
fun?
people to like call me on my
Oh my
bullshit, like,
God.
be like stirred and everything. If I have like a partnership with another person,
I
like a wife or
don't
girlfriend
fight
or
for
whatever,
fun.
like, in my eyes, it has to be somewhat equal. Like if I was out sleeping with people and my wife for whatever reason didn't want to or never did, or she was monogamous, like I would view that as her not having any self-respect. Because I'm basically getting a really
this
big ask from her for like some sexual loyalty, and then she's letting me go out and do
here.
whatever I want. And at that, I'm like, why would you ever agree to that unless I've got like so much leverage over you, or you're like so much beneath
Over
me
here.
that I have the ability to do that. Like that's how I view it. I understand everybody view it, but
And
that's
then
how I view
another
it.
one
It wasn't
down
sexual
here.
loyalty, but it was more so
Sexual
she didn't have any
loyalty.
desire for anyone other than you.
Oh, I mean, if she didn't want to, then I wouldn't care. But it doesn't make a difference one way or another to me. But if she didn't want to, I'd probably be okay with it. The only thing that logistically that probably wouldn't work out though, because if I'm out like hooking up with other people and seeing other people, and she's just like at home, it's like, what the fuck is happening? Like my husband should be hanging out with me, and he's like out, you know, hanging out with random chicks. Like fuck me, you know.
So how do you draw those boundaries? Do you just say, hey, we have open discourse over who you're with, who I'm with, and of course we have this time that we reserve for each other?
It's very difficult, and we're still kind of working that out for a variety of reasons. But the idealized form of our relationship is usually we both have other people that we like to see, and if we're traveling,
Consistent people?
ideally, not always, but ideally sometimes. But the basically, if somebody's going to go
Get off
somebody or
me.
travel to see somebody, then the other person is doing it at the same time. That's like the ideal, so that everybody kind of has something to do at the same time, and nobody's.
So
like,
you're
sitting
like,
around.
hey, honey, I'll be back in a few hours. You're going
I'll be
there.
back in 20 minutes.
Well, I think we usually it's
20
the goal would be to,
minutes?
like plan things out like in advance, kind of. So like if she's gonna travel to like New York to go do a photo shoot and she's got like a friend up there, or whatever, then I know that like a month in advance. Maybe I'll plan. To, like,
Okay,
hook up with somebody and get my
so
involved or something like
what's next? Oh, let's just go down
Okay, so as a
here.
person who has only
Here
been
we go.
monogamous and who plans to only be monogamous for the rest of my life, just based off of
For the
who I
rest
know,
of my life.
when I look at a relationship like this, I cannot help but feel, and I'm not being judgmental towards you in any capacity,
all the best comments start off.
And yeah,
that there,
No disrespect.
that there seems to
continues
be
to be
less love
judgmental.
in a relationship that is like that. Can you dismantle that argument with facts and logic?
Not at all.
Easy.
There's a lot of these things are very emotionally driven. I understand the argument that like if we're in love with each other, you should only have eyes for me. and we only
One,
make love with each other because that's a special thing in a relationship. I understand that argument.
easy.
If I were to try to attack that as brutally as I could on the other end, and if I were to come at it from like I'm poly and I don't understand monogamous people, what I would probably say is that like for me,
Here?
if my wife and I lost our genitalia, we would still have the exact same amount of love
What
for
the
each other. I would
fuck?
define the love that I have for people, or especially my wife, by the fact that we have sex, or some sexual exclusivity has no bearing whatsoever on my feeling for her. Like, there are reasons why I love
Easy.
her. There are reasons why I like to spend time with her and do things with her and travel with her and all these things.
Yes.
And these things exist wholly independently from the sexual component.
But sex is important in love.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I
but
know
it's
that-
not like it's not. Here's the thing. Right now I can fuck any person that I can fuck, but the special moments that I share with like friends or my wife are moments I could only share with her. I have a lot of sex with a lot of people, but I can't have the same type of time that I spend with my wife with any other person. That's just
Yeah.
not possible. So like that's
Makes
the thing
sense.
for me that defines the relationship. There's a lot of people that I've had.
Oh,
sexual
that guy
trips
was
with.
flying.
There's not a lot of people that I've had like really loving, vulnerable, caring, kind, nurturing moments with. Yeah.
How do you feel like your relationship affects your son seeing this? Do you
Man, I don't know. That kid's
want
gonna
the
be.
same things for him,
He's gonna
or-
be all sorts of fucked up when he gets old enough.
Yep.
The policy that I have with my kid is a policy that I've always had for myself. I am very, very, very open and very honest about basically everything. Like even when he's 6, if he asks me a question for like how does a car work, like I'll try to describe everything I can.
How
I
does
never
a
want to say like, oh,
fucking
like
car
when you're
work?
older, oh, I just want to blah blah. I try to keep things age appropriate, but like because I've been like so
Okay.
open for so long, I think that generally like because me and his mom are split, he's got his household with his mom, and he's got his whole family, his mom's side, his grandma, grandpa, and everything over there, and then he's got me, and then hopefully like my wife. So like when I fly into town or when he comes to Miami, he visits me, and then he knows that like he knows we're married, he knows my girlfriend, and we
that
hang
guy
out.
was
But
flying.
because we've been split the entire time, I don't think he had to undergo that schism of like, why aren't mom and dad together anymore? And I don't understand why there's all these other people and blah, blah, blah. That's just kind of like what he's always known as the norm. And for all the faults that me and Rachel, his mom, had in our relationship, she does an amazing job being a mom and working with me in terms of like working with my son. Like we don't have like a formal custody agreement. We have a lot of conversations about like if he's having certain problems that are related to like boy things, like she'll talk to me and she'll be like, hey, can you have this conversation with him about like viewing this on the computer, talking to people this way, or blah, blah, blah. So she does a really good job at like keeping me in the loop, and then I do a good job at communicating with her about that. So
Does she disagree
Like-
with your choices now in terms of having an open marriage?
Um,
Like worrying about like, hey, I don't believe in this for my son.
no, but we've never had that conversation. I imagine he'll just choose. I don't think that we'll try to force. I guess I've never had that conversation with her before. I don't think she cares. She thinks I'm a little crazy. I think she's a little crazy. But like we live our lifestyles. But like I don't know if I would never like impart on my son like, hey, listen, you want to grow up and be a high value man and juggle 5 women. But like I'm not gonna say anything like that. Like I figure he'll discover and explore that on his own. But he's also like 12. So
Man, there's
yeah.
a lot
That's
of
about
fucking
the
treasure
age,
goblins
right?
running
Is that
around.
polyamorous?
I don't know, when you're figuring yourself out and
Listen, if you're a 12-year-old guy and you can manage multiple relationships in what is that, fucking 6th, 7th grade, go for it, okay? But no, I imagine there's like other stuff he's got going on developmentally.
Oh my
He's
god,
not,
get off of me! Holy
going to the Mormon
shit!
church and being polygamous or something yet. So sure, but yeah, I mean, I imagine when the conversations come in the future, we'll just talk about it.
And what about when you meet somebody else? Are you just upfront and say, hey, I have an open marriage? Or if they reach out to you, they already know the situation?
I try at this stage. I try to be as upfront with everybody as possible, because when you start like
Finally.
lying
Oh my
about certain things or
god.
obfuscating things,
Dropped
or
3
masking
fucking
things,
legendaries.
then shit
Nice.
can get very, very, very complicated very quickly. So yeah, like Melina's on like my Instagram. We like talk publicly about each other. There's no secret there that we're married or anything. So I try to be like pretty open about all that.
Graham and I contend over who we have on the podcast quite
Let's grab
often.
this shit.
I know that you've at some point collaborated with
Nick
Fuentes. Now, I
Fuentes.
want to know what your stance is
Chain
on bringing certain people
lightning.
onto your platform.
Good
and
lucky
giving them
hit
exposure,
chance.
albeit you're contending
Increase.
with them and disagreeing with them and maybe raising really good
Ice armor is
go
active.
against what they're saying. What do you think about giving them, I would say, another, like a microphone?
It's a very, very, very challenging balancing act, but I'll tend to hear out most
Garbage.
people with kind of like that open mind philosophy, like come in, talk to me, and then I'm gonna try to tell you why I think you're wrong, while
Okay,
being as
well,
empathetic or
what the
understanding as
fuck was
possible.
I doing just now?
Something unique that I provide that I think is really important to some of these alternative communities is I'm like the only person that is progressive that like isn't fucking unhinged. And I think it's really good sometimes to show people that, like, hey, you can be pro LGBT, you can have like blue hair, be in like weird relationships or whatever, but I can be like a funny, cool, charismatic, like we can have fun and chill, and I can be like understanding of you and not be like super judgmental or try to cancel you and be horrible. For a lot of people, I think that seeing somebody like that on my side is really important because representation for progressives is absolutely fucking dog shit right now on the internet. So to some extent, when I'm platforming other people, that's a thing that I'm keeping in mind. There's a lot of those communities that I've interacted with who I'm like the first positive representation of like a left-leaning person they've ever seen. That's one thing. The second thing is, if I am platforming somebody like that, I'm trying to make sure that everybody understands where I'm at. Like, I'm not just having the person on to like laugh and giggle and like play games. Like, generally, like with Fuentes, it was a lot of debating, a lot of arguing over different points. So hopefully, one, I can demonstrate to his audience that there are at least some arguments on the other side. And then two, my audience can see the arguments I'm having, and then they've got like more tools to like deal with that type of stuff in the future. One thing I don't agree with, I don't like burying your head in the sand and pretending that some people aren't saying certain things. You should be able to deal with a lot of those arguments without being like, oh my god, my whole audience suddenly turned into Nazis, because I think we've gone down that road so far that, and I think platforms are finally starting to reverse course. We got to this ridiculous world where like half the country is believing in things that you can't talk about on any social media platform. Can't talk about vaccine skepticism.
Where the
Can't
fuck
talk
is?
about,
Oh, it's down there.
election,
How do we get down there?
being stolen. Can't talk about like COVID-19 theories or whatever. I personally, I think these things are harmful ideas. I think they're bad, but if half the country believes in them, how are we not having conversations about them?
Jesus, how the fuck do I get down there?
Once you get on one of those topics, the algorithm is so good that it just recommends more and more and more, and they pile on top of each other, and then you get more and more and more extreme because those are what's getting clicks. That's what's keeping people on the platforms.
Yeah, but the goal is to like
easy to chop it off right there.
Yeah, but I mean, the sharpening of the sword should be on the side of the people arguing against it, right? Like if people are getting lost down like certain algorithms, it happens on the left and the right. If people get lost down certain algorithms, people on the left need to do a better job at providing better arguments in like a more entertaining way, because I feel like people on the left are so like dogmatic, and then they're so like condescending in their approach, where it's like you either believe me or you're a bigot, and that's all I'm gonna say to you. And then on the right, like all of their figures are like highly entertaining, right? The Tates are very entertaining. Alex Jones is very entertaining. Like you've got like all these figures that, and I think they spread harmful ideas, but like fuck, I'm not gonna lie and say they're not funny as hell while they're doing it. They're not like super entertaining. And then on our side, we just have like a bunch of like people that are basically like condescending. And it's like fuck, like it's just not a good look.
Well, that's a great point. Yeah,
the way the foundational view that I have is essentially is that like we've like done like one of the most dangerous things in all of human history is we've said that like the most educated man in all of society has the exact same vote as like a homeless dude. Both of their opinions count for one vote in one election. And if we're going to give citizens the ability to go down and equal to every other citizen decide to vote on a leader that they want, if we're going to entrust the power into the people to run, essentially choose like our elected officials, how do you not trust them to talk about like COVID-19? That's insane to me.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
God damn.
So what are your thoughts then on the Rogan and is it Peter Hotez debate? What do you think about that? I don't know if have you heard about that, Graham?
I'm not familiar.
So Rogan had on RFK Jr. recently, and he was bringing up skepticism towards the vaccine and vaccine mandates and stuff like that. And then Peter Hotez, skepticism or denying or whatever it may be. Yeah. Peter Hotez, I'm not super familiar with the story. Peter Hotez goes and he tweets him basically saying like, oh, like why are you spreading all of this? I don't know. I
think I saw some of that on
misinformation.
What is this?
And then Rogan said, I would love to facilitate a debate between you two. And then Rogan said, I'll donate $100,000 if I can facilitate this debate on my podcast. And then Hotez said, oh, Rogan, that's what you spend on a weekend hunting with your boys. Like, I know with the Spotify deal with this, you have a bunch of money, so $50 million is the dollar amount that I'm willing to actually agree to, which is absurd. And then basically everyone's now pitching in. So you have like Twitter accounts that are like verified checkmark people. Like, I don't know, maybe they're not even that credible or anything.
I think it was Mark Cuban who threw in.
Man, it could be.
Mark
I
Cuban,
have no
is
idea
like,
which side
Rogan,
it's
why
on.
would you
Maybe
ever
this
platform?
side.
You know what I'm talking about. Yeah, why would you ever platform?
Mark Cuban came out with like a good ass message.
Yeah, he was like
what a
mad
champion.
at Joe Rogan.
Hell yeah.
And of course RFK Jr. because he's like very pro-vaccine mandate and stuff like that. So anyways, this whole debate's happening. Everyone's trying to raise funding to have this debate. What do you think about that?
This is a very big frustration that I have. When I have to argue against a lot of these people, I have spent a lot of time reading research, reading studies, spending time on Wikipedia, figuring out like I have to learn so much shit because it's not my area of expertise, right? And all this research that I'm doing, like all this, every time like a new conspiracy theory comes out, like I have to like do more reading and more research to get like a handle on like immunology, viruses, like all this shit.
I chose
wish
correctly.
that people in the academic world spent a little bit more time on public outreach because I don't think that like the job should be left to people like me to do it. all of my ability and bonuses and stats in life are on this kind of like rhetorical and argumentative side, and I'm pretty smart, so I can do the research too. But goddamn, like rather than me, who's really good at debate, trying to research my way up there, why not take a guy that's really really well researched and then have him just like practice a little bit in terms of debate or conversation? I've seen the Hotez guy talk before, and I don't think he would be the good choice for that RFK debate. He seems pretty knowledgeable, but he doesn't handle himself very well in conversations. So I wish that more academics would practice that outreach, because at the end of the day, if whatever you're studying in academia, dies on the walls of your classroom, what's the point of anything you're doing, right? You might believe all of this and can prove all of it, but nobody in society does. What value do you have to anybody? Yeah, that's very frustrating to me.
So you think the debate should happen?
I think the debate should happen, but you need to find academics who are
You
more...
think it shouldn't be Hotez?
I don't, based on, I've only seen a little, I probably only watched like 30 minutes of arguing. Based on a little bit I've seen, he doesn't seem like the kind of guy that can aggressively handle himself in a
charismatic
competitional
or
situation.
anything. A lot of the times when you debate conservatives, I've noticed that you debate them very aggressively. Do you think that it would work in your favor if the end goal is to actually convert conservatives to having a more liberal perspective, would be to debate more compassionately? Like you said, how, if you slander someone or you morally grandstand on them or you call them a bigot, that's not the best way of converting people towards your ideology. Do you think if you went into it with more compassion, that it would actually yield better results?
Yeah, I think so. It's funny that you asked me that question, because the research must have been on relatively older videos, because my recent approach has been like very, very, very compassionate. Usually the pushback I get from the audience and other people is that I'm way too nice to conservatives. Like a lot of people call me like a Nazi or a fascist or whatever, just because I like try to be pretty empathetic and understanding when I'm arguing with conservatives, and I tend to do a pretty good job at that. But my relationship with people on the left is so adversarial that like a lot of people are like, oh, you have no charity for people on the left, you're so nice conservative.
And these things are getting hidden
There's something called
in the trees.
another bias, cognitive bias. Something called the bigotry of small differences. If you're arguing with somebody that is ideologically very different than you, there's not much they can say to actually like hurt or upset you, right? Like if I'm talking to a conservative and they say like, oh, like you support the gay agenda and you're blah blah blah, and I'm like, okay, maybe. But if I'm disagreeing with a person on the left, their insults are like, oh, you're racist, you're homophobic, you're bigoted, and it's like, no. You feel a lot more strongly attacked by insults that are coming from people that are more ideologically similar to you, because you don't see yourself as the insults they give in. Whereas like for a conservative, I can understand a conservative saying that like, oh, you're like a cuck, SJW, blah blah blah. It's like, yeah, to you I probably am. But like when a person on the left is saying like you're a horrible racist person, it's like filled with hatred. It's like, I'm absolutely not. So I think for people that are more ideologically similar to you, you're more likely to fight with them. I think this happens to conservatives and people on the left.
And what was it that helped you pivot from being more aggressive towards your adversary to a more compassionate?
I think just strategy analysis over time. Like in 2016 when I started debating, my whole kind of like shtick was that I was like the aggressive leftist debater, that like no other person on the left was willing to do that. But just like over time, as I talk to people, as I communicate to people, as I learn and understand more about people, I start to realize that like if I change somebody's mind, I have to understand where they're coming from. Otherwise, it's basically like I can come into your audience and I can just basically shit on you and attack you so hard that like some members of the audience like think you did so bad that they kind of want to like abandon you. Or I can step in and be like, listen, I know where you're coming from, like let's talk about this or this. And that seems to be a more effective strategy overall to getting people.
Do you feel like your blue hair helps or hurts you?
That's a really hard one. I like to have a wide scope in terms of like what I present as and what I'm capable of. So in some ways it hurts me because it puts me immediately on kind of like a back foot, because like, oh, you're blue-haired, blah 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 blah. But then like it's also funny to come on and be the blue-haired guy, but like the other people are the ones like screaming and losing their mind, and I'm like trying to be like rational, reasonable, whatever. So there's like there's a big like dissonance when somebody sees me and they're like, oh, this guy's probably gonna come up and scream about how we're all racist or whatever, but then like I'll come on and make edgy jokes and like be chill or whatever. And so I think it helps a little bit. Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people on the right could completely just ignore you,
dismiss you, yeah,
because they see like the beard or whatever. They see just the destiny, like your own merch on your chest, and then
the beard.
Yeah,
the beard.
I don't know.
The beard.
Like,
you know, Jesus had a beard, right?
Jack, the beard.
Can we cut that? The beard.
I guess we could. The beard is fine. Okay, but maybe
thank you.
The beard makes
the blue hair.
The blue hair, maybe like. You know, the beard is groomed pretty well. Okay, I'm not.
No, that's all right. I'm gonna get a septum piercing.
No,
yeah, go ahead.
But you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, no, I understand.
If you presented yourself in a very professional way, right, rather than what a lot of people view the liberals as, do you think that it could help convert also more people from the right? And it's also something different. It differentiates you. I feel like from just the stereotype that a lot of the conservatives see, and then that would be enough of a shocker to hopefully give them some space in their brain where you can help them fill that with something.
There's like
of your ideology.
Yeah, there's a very delicate balancing act between like how much do I want to, I don't want to say compromise, but like how much do I want to
Fucking trees.
a demeanor about me to appeal to somebody else versus what ground do I want to fight over? And that's just like a subjective feeling like every time. Like I can either say like I'm gonna dress in a suit and tie, be very professional, go talk to you, because I don't even want to try to convince you about appearance or anything. Or I can say actually, appearance is one of the grounds that I do want to convince you of that. I should be able to talk to you. You should be able to hear me. And as long as I'm making good arguments and having fun, and everybody's like being chill or whatever, even though I look a certain way, it shouldn't be a bother to you. And hopefully that like moves you a bit, like it moves the needle a bit on like the appearance thing. But at the end of the day, it just comes down to ultimate like what do you want to fight over, you know?
See, I feel like your appearance helps you with personal branding and online marketing.
It absolutely does for that because
But,
now
yeah.
so many people are like, oh my god, you're the blue-haired guy.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I've seen some of your interviews on whatever. It stands out.
Yeah.
Because of the hair.
The blue hair.
But I feel like when debating with certain people, they might dismiss you a little bit too quickly because of that.
Maybe.
Yes.
Why do you go on whatever?
I'm really good at going into other environments and like synergizing really well
Where the
with,
fuck am I?
especially in hostile environments. So I like going on whatever because their audience is like primed to hate me, but I can still go on, have a good time, get a whole new audience to view me in a positive light, and then I like win fans in favor, and it's a usually fun.
Why do they hate you?
Because we're ideologically completely different. Like I hate almost every single thing red pill people stand for, and they all tend to be like more like conservative or anti-establishment in views. So I'm like the exact opposite too.
What are the biggest things you guys clash on, though?
Well, the last time I was there 2 days ago was a debate on abortion. So that was but it was just me versus another set of people. Other times, so like red pill stuff, basically everything. My view of like red pill is basically like red pillers hate women, and then they try to tell you all the ways you could fuck them over, and that's like the entirety of like the red pill ideology. That's what it feels like to me. That's not like the best Steelman version of it, but that's
Not
feeling.
how they frame it.
Huh?
That's not how they
No, of course not. The way that they frame it is
like
through
working on yourself.
Oh,
yeah,
fucking
it's male
course
empowerment
not.
to put yourself in an area where you have so much success and power that you're able to attract and achieve whatever you want with whatever woman you want. Essentially, yeah.
So what is your advice for a young single guy out there? If he wants to improve himself, he wants to get better at dating.
It's such a complicated question. This advice is gonna be so broad it's worthless. But like my advice is you need to find warm spaces where you can have friendships and conversations with women. That is the most important thing you can do. If you have no women in your life at all, and you're gonna start trying to pick one up on like Tinder or pick one up publicly, you don't even know how to talk to a woman. Like start with warm spaces where you can make friends with women, learn how to talk and not be fucking scared or afraid or whatever. And then like even you meet women through women and you meet women in spaces with women. Like from there you can kind of start to build out, you know, like yeah, I guess like you're eventually hopefully to get to dating or whatever. You can talk about like other things. People are like talking about like money and looks and all that shit. But I mean like there's plenty of guys that fuck that look really bad and don't have any money because they just like they put effort into it and they try to do it. And there's plenty of guys with money that look really good that fuck way less than people think. So
What do you think of What Is a Woman?
I thought it was a really well done film. I think it's very convincing. And
Did you watch the whole thing?
Yeah.
And what did you think about Elon Musk pinning it as a tweet saying every parent should watch this?
Elon is the most cringe person in the fucking universe.
You don't think that every parent should watch it?
No.
Why not? What did you disagree with of the documentary? What Is a Woman?
Well, I disagree with the whole point of the film, obviously. I think that the funny thing is that I think that in a very roundabout way, if you engage with it like intellectually, the film makes a really good point. But I think it makes the point in the opposite way that it thinks it does. But I think if you just like watch it normally, you're gonna come away thinking like, oh, obviously a woman is like an adult human female wife, like Matt Walsh's wife says in the end or whatever. Without getting into all this cringe like theory of language stuff, on a very, very basic level, language is very, very, very complicated. The way that we use words is very complicated. I've argued with a friend for like 2 days about what the word base means. Okay, language is very, very, very complicated. The way that I view language is typically when you say one word, as soon as you say that word, there's a bunch of peripheral things that kind of like light up next to that word. And you can kind of like move through these peripheral things. But to define a word exactly is very challenging. So like, for example, we can take something very, very, very basic, like a chair. When I say chair, a whole bunch of things come to mind immediately. Maybe the color brown, maybe wood, maybe four legs, maybe a back. There's a whole bunch of things. But if I try to say like exactly what is a chair, any and all of these things could theoretically be up for debate. Right? Like, is a beanbag chair a chair? Is a chair with 3 legs a chair? Obviously. What about a chair with no back? What's the difference between a chair and a table? Like that becomes like, for instance, if I say chair and I say table, there's a lot of the same concepts light up, right? So broadly speaking, that's how we view language, I think, and that's on a basic concept. So when a conservative walks in and they're like, what is a woman? Like there's like some concrete definitive answer. Gender is very, very, very complicated. And I think that the best answer on the show was actually given by Jordan Peterson, because when Matt Walsh asked him, what is a woman? Jordan Peterson's answer is relatively insightful. Like I think he ends up, he says things like, well, maybe you'd have a better chance looking at temperament than like genitals, or temperament rather than gender. And I think at the very end, he says, I don't even know if he knows it's as insightful as it was when he said it. I think he said, if you want to know what a woman is, why don't you go out and marry one and find out, or something, which is actually how we do explore language. You go out into the world, you associate concepts with things, and that's how it goes. So in that sense, sorry, this is a big ramble. Like, the film is interesting in that like Jordan Peterson does actually give way more nuanced responses than I would have thought, but Matt Walsh just like nods his head, and then at the end his wife gives like the best answer. But I hate the topic because it brushes over so many really complicated aspects of how language and ontology and categories are used and constructed and how they exist, just to try to like own trans people, which I think is really dumb. I think you can be like pro or against trans people, but like at the very least like treat like language with the due respect it has. But yeah, that was
Good answer.
Yeah, I actually think it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
What do you think about Jordan Peterson?
Jordan Peterson is very smart and insightful when he talks about psychology, and he's very fucking stupid when he talks about anything besides psychology. So when he's talking about like politics, history, social problems, I just like, it's the worst thing ever. When he talks about psychology, I think he's generally pretty insightful, but he doesn't seem to do that as much anymore. He seems like he's on the politics
It seems
grind.
like he roots a lot of his political beliefs in psychology.
Maybe.
Like he relates everything back to psychology.
Yeah, he
How that
tries
can
to, but like it's hard to stretch. He makes, yeah, I don't know. Listening to him talk about like like he's even against like I think like adults doing like trans surgery. Like, didn't he come out against Elliot Page? I think, yeah. Like he's an adult.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. Jordan Peterson on politics is very sad. It's like listening to Elon Musk talk about anything besides like I guess like aeronautics or startups and business or whatever. Like when Elon Musk wants to talk about like AI and politics and shit, and it's like I don't think you have anything to be talking about. I don't know why you think you should be talking about this, but.
But do you have any concerns about
damage,
what
damage
Matt Walsh was
from
bringing up in the documentary
enemies,
of like how
garbage.
making it, like putting it in public school systems?